Super uneventful week of Cavs basketball. I mean, they just play a very, very unnoteworthy, unnewsworthy double overtime game with the inferior Bulls team. And then, it's the Suns game where Evan Mobley kind of just hits a game winner. So other than that, I guess the other Bulls game too was close, went down to the wire.
Yeah.
But other than that, it's been pretty uneventful, right?
Right. Nothing notable in the history of the Cleveland Cavaliers. Not like there was the best scoring performance of all time in a Cavs jersey. Nothing exciting like that.
I mean, like it's past the point. So that was the most points accounted for that we have ever seen on TV, dog. Like he was only second to Wilt Chamberlain. What, 99
Crazy.
points accounted for? 99 points accounted for? Like, you can watch every game in NBA history. You'll never see a player account for more points than Donovan Mitchell did. The game had like 140 points. There were like 45 points that might not have had Donovan's hands on it. My God. And you know what? You know what's the crazy part? Because I already did the video, so I kind of want to get your thoughts on it. But like, the last thing I'll say on it is the crazy part was like, it didn't even feel like Donovan was hogging the ball. Like, that's the thing. Like, you normally notice when LeBron's going into takeover mode, you know what I mean? And LeBron's not selfish. You just notice it. It was like he got the 71 points, but if you weren't paying attention to the point total, you just be like, Donovan Mitchell was balling. And then you look at the stat sheet and you're like, ow.
Right, because Jetty was hitting, I think he had 19 points total. So other guys were contributing, so you're right. It wasn't like it just felt like a Donovan takeover. And it's funny. So when the game was first on, I was half watching because all of the Monday Night Football stuff was happening at the exact same time. So I was really kind of focusing on that, but was half watching also the Cavs game. So the next day when I rewatched it, already knowing what had happened, it's late third quarter. And Donovan's at 35 points. And so in my head, I'm like, oh my God, knowing what you already know, he's still going to go for 40 more points. And it just feels so impossible in the moment. You're like, God, how does he end up accomplishing this in just another quarter of basketball? But I mean, he was so aggressive, attacking the hoop and just getting other guys involved too. Like you said, it was pretty crazy. And I was thinking about this. I'm curious what you think if you had a similar perspective, but I feel like when Luka had his 60-20-10 the other day, the whole world erupted. Now, I don't know if it's because it was just bad timing of the Monday Night Football stuff with DeMar Hamlin, that I feel like the 71 points wasn't getting the attention that the Luka moment was. I'm not sure if that was just me or if you had a similar feeling to that.
I think it caught a bad break in timing because not only was the DeMar stuff was there, but the Lucas stuff happened right before the year ended, right? And when was that? Right after Christmas?
Yeah, it was right around there. Yep.
Okay, so it happened right after Christmas. And what happens at all these networks is that people go on vacation right after Christmas for a couple weeks, people work. So not only did he have that game and then DeMar Hamlin happens, he also has it when most people in the NBA news cycle just aren't working, right?
Right.
And then it's it's the second giant game that's happened like that.
Right.
And then it's Clay had 54, you know what I mean? A bunch of, so it then gets lumped into this larger conversation of why is this point explosion happening 2 weeks, a week or something after Luka comes in? So it's I think a combination of things came together and kind of muted what was done. But I think when you score 71 points, it the impact immediately, that's going to be one thing. But this is not I remember when Kobe scored 81, it wasn't immediately oh my God, y'all, Kobe scored 81 points. It was something you would hear about, this is before you could just go on YouTube and find highlights. It was a urban legend that you would hear, Kobe had that 81 point game against the Raptors. And then it just became this legend of this 81-point game. And then that's how it became this whole thing. It wasn't like the internet shut down and they stopped and did an ESPN alert. It was like, oh my God, Kobe Bryant. It was kind of like, wow, Kobe had 81. Yeah. And then it became like a giant thing like that. So with things like this, the impact is going to be like, hey, if Donovan like goes crazy in the playoffs, that 71-point game is going to become even more iconic because people are going to go back on it, right? It's not necessarily about the impact that it has in the moment more so than the impact that it's going to have to his legacy, because like I think Brian Windhurst put it best. When you talk about Kobe Bryant, you say 5-time NBA champion, 1-time MVP, 81 points. When you're going to, with Donovan Mitchell, no matter what he accomplishes, 71-point game. By the way, on better efficiency than Kobe Bryant, got 81. Like,
there you go.
Better, and then he had a double-double. That's the part that I feel like people are like. That's the part. If I had any gripes with how people are talking about it, the 71 points is like, okay, that's insane. But I see how he got there, and it wasn't like I've seen Donovan Mitchell actually be hotter than this season. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I have never seen somebody be this like get 71 points, and it just. You can barely notice it. And you know what? You had a funny point, too, when you're like, hey, you're watching this. You're like, oh, my God. Like, how does he get to 71? I watched that game, and I think I got halfway through the third quarter, too. And I was like, Twitter lied to me. Like, I got pranked. Like, there's no way he has 7. I'm thinking, like, did DeMar have the 71-point game? Did I read the tweet wrong when I heard, like, somebody say Donovan Mitchell 71? And I was like, there's no way he got to 71. And then he just, like, exploded. But it was like a quiet explosion because they were just fouling him because they could do nothing to stop him. And it was more of a, I'm going to just get to the basket. And that's one of the things that I love about this Cavs team recently is when the shots ain't falling, they don't fall into this mode like last year where they just panic and keep shooting and just pray that they get out of it. They go, all right, I'm just going to grit and grind this thing, right? Like if it has to be ugly, it's going to be ugly. We can win that way too. And I think nothing shows the improvement to this Cavs team. Nothing shows why people should be encouraged to this Cavs team more than the fact that they were able to win a game where they had to score 140 points one night. And then 2 nights later, they win a game where they can't even get to 90.
Yep. Yeah, I think that's a great point of just like the way in which he was scoring by attacking the basket, because I think that's maybe what made it feel slower. Like if it was strictly just 3-pointers, maybe the impact would have felt different in the moment. Of course, he had those in the mix as well, but it was a lot of attacking the basket, which I think just over time you're like, oh yeah, wait, that adds up too, and makes a huge difference. I also like the point you made about just kind of the scoring across the league right now, maybe toning down 71 in the moment and making it seem smaller, because I think it was Bleacher Report maybe just put up a graphic of the number of players who have had 40-point games in the last 2-3 weeks. It is an insane list for how many people are putting up. Like 40 is a lot to put up on a night. Like I feel like it's become almost normal to put up 40 in a night. Years ago, that was like the pinnacle, it felt like, was if you could put up 40 in a night. So it's just interesting to see the way the elite players in this league are scoring at a really high level. And I think it does make the conversation different in the moment. But you're right. When you're looking down the line at Donovan's legacy and who he has been as a player, that is going to stick with him forever and won't be forgotten for sure.
Yeah, and I think the main thing that I think we forget about, because it sounds crazy when I say this, but like the talent gap between non-professional basketball player, collegiate professional basketball player, and a NBA player is so much wider than any other sport, because this is the ones, maybe, I don't know with like how things are with like football or international football, right? Because there's a lot of people who play it, but like in the States, we don't play it that much. Like we don't send our best athletes there. So maybe that's a little bit more similar to what's happening with basketball, but every country plays basketball. And a lot of them take it very serious now. And it's like, there's so many, like in order to be an NFL player, you just got to be one of the best players in college. And then you'll play in the NFL. There's no like Germany sending 20 guys to the league. Like there's none of that here, where in the NBA, it's like, you might be good in college. You know what I mean? But we got EuroLeague guys coming in that've been professional forever, and they're really good now. It's not like back in the 90s where like they got like 3 dudes in the league. Like there's a bunch of European guys in the league now. So like the talent pool is international and it's giant. And look, I have seen like when I was in college, Kendrick Perry was at Youngstown State. He was like the NCAA points leader. I remember watching him being like, that's what an NBA player looks like. It looks like he makes every shot. He's impossible to stop. He never even made it to Europe. Like he was barely on a G League team. He played in Australia most of his career. And I'm like, how good do you have to be to get into the NBA? Like, when you watch this G League basketball and you're like, yo, they're so much better than college. Like the talent pool to get to the NBA is now more insane than it's ever been. And like, I don't like when people go and say like the 90s players like would have been plumbers or something like that. But there is some truth to like, there are a lot of guys who had like decent careers in the 90s that would not have a role in this game because one, the rules have changed, sure, but the pool of people that they look at and bring into play is so much more fine and filtered that, I mean, like there's really not as like Big Z. The later edges of his career probably couldn't have happened in today's NBA because like you can't be a big and have those slow feet like he had the last like 6 years of his career. But he got out right before the explosion happened. And, I kind of talked about this on the podcast I have with Tony is coming up Saturday where we're like, the explosion of the capability of what athletes can do now has taken a considerable leap from 2007 to 2017. Like, imagine dropping Pat Mahomes or somebody like that in an Andy Reid offense in like 2007. It would blow people's minds. You know what I mean? Like, Big Ben used to be the Josh Allen of his time. Like, if we really look at it. And like that, like, I don't think we have caught up to. This thing has exploded athletically. Yeah. Like this league, every league has exploded. Like you're seeing crazier stuff across every sport than you used to because like we just have figured something out in that process to get guys better trained for this thing. And it's just incredible to watch now.
Right. Well, especially in the NBA, I feel like there's such a finite number of players too, because at any given time, each team can only have 5 players on the court. The bench isn't massive, so it is such a select group of players, whereas maybe like in football, obviously there's a lot more that it takes to put a team together. So I think that's what even makes the talent feel so much more narrowed down, because I mean you truly have to be the best of the best in order to make an NBA roster. Even a bench player, you've got to be up there.
Yeah, like Karis LeVert would have had his own team in like the early 2000s. Yeah, like Rick, that was Ricky Davis on the Cavs. Like basically he was that. So, like it's different. It's just different now. And you mentioned something like the pool for NBA talent is bigger, more talented, more qualified, and the teams, there's less of them. There's less spots, there's less teams. Yeah. Right. Like, so it's insane, like what they have going on there. And you're just seeing the result of that. Yes, the rule changes have helped, but it's partly because, I mean, like you got guys who can get to the basket at 7 foot tall, like doing Euro steps. It's crazy. Like Luke is like 6'9" playing the way he does. And like, we look at him as like a charmingly unathletic person. Like that's crazy. It's just wild where we've gotten to here. But that brings into a question about like Donovan Mitchell, right? Because I don't know. For me, my perspective on Donovan Mitchell has always been, he's really good, but he's not like one of those guys, right? Like when you compare him to D Wade, you say, hey, he could be D Wade. He could be close to D Wade, but you stop shy of saying he is the D Wade of his generation. I think that 71-point game, and honestly, like the 71-point game is just the dressing on top of what's been his season so far. But this season has been, he is definitely a top 10 player in his in the league right now. Like he is a legitimate MVP contender. He is somebody that like Like, I don't know if anybody thought before the Cavs made the trade, is Donovan Mitchell the best player on the championship team, right? I think we're all thinking, hey, when Evan Mobley comes along, this is going to be great. Now I'm like, can he be the best player on the championship team? It doesn't feel outrageous, you know?
Right. Well, especially the way he's like improved his defensive game as well. Like he's become such an all-around player, and then his scoring has obviously reached a completely new level that we didn't even know
68 points. He was at 68 points and then sprint back on defense in overtime. He played 50 minutes in that game and was sprinting back after a dead ball in overtime when they were up 7. Like he had already put the game away.
He said he couldn't even feel his legs at that point. He said he was just kind of trying to make it, which I mean makes sense because at that point I don't even know how you hold your body up, let alone sprint to go get the ball. But
I've seen LeBron get gassed on the court. I've seen Kyrie get. I did not see he didn't get gassed. That was the thing that was
he looked fine. I was surprised when he said it. His legs were hurting. I was like, really? You looked fine. You looked energized.
I mean, a robot. No.
Yeah. No, it's special. Well, and it's interesting you talk about kind of like who he is as a player in this league right now. I was looking at the MVP odds earlier. He's currently 8th in the odds. So ahead is number 1 right now, Luka, then Tatum, then Jokic, Giannis, Durant, Embiid, Ja, and then Donovan. And it's hard because when I'm looking at that, it's like all of those players are playing at such a high level right now where I don't know like where I would actually put Donovan in that list, because like we talked about, everyone's scoring at like a really high level at this moment in time in the NBA and kind of having their own moment on their team. So it's weird for me to like, I in my head, I'm like, he should be higher, but then I don't know who I would put him above on that list. It is also a very narrative based award. And I feel like Luka has been in that conversation for a while where everyone's kind of like, when's it going to be his year? When's it going to be his year? So I feel like that always plays into it too, but I'm curious if you think he should be above any of those other guys that I listed off there.
I think because of the improvement from the year before, he might be able to make a case for being above Ja, and Joel, because Joel's kind of just been there for a while.
Right.
Yeah, so I think you can make the argument there. It's hard because like this is just the worst year to have an MVP level season.
I know. It really is.
We look at football, like in NFL, it's the complete opposite, where it's like nobody's really having like a clear-cut MVP year, so it's probably just going to go to Pat Mahomes just because he's still Pat Mahomes.
Right.
But then you look at basketball and it's like you can make an argument for like 10 people to be MVP legitimately, and it's not like farcical. Like, you know, this is a very tough year to win the MVP. It's going to take something incredible. Like he had a 71-point game and he wasn't like, it's not like when Devin Booker got 70 and he got on 50% shooting and he wasn't in the MVP conversation anyways, and the team had like 19 wins. He got 71 points, won the game on great efficiency, 10 assists, 8 rebounds, 3 of them offensive rebounds, by the way. And people were still like, I don't know if I could put him above Luka. Like, usually that's the kind of thing that makes you win an MVP. Like, I don't remember when Kobe won it, but I think he almost won it the year he scored 81, but they were a terrible team that year. I think like Smush Parker was on it. So like I think that's the year almost he almost requested to be traded. So it's so hard this year because literally everybody's playing. LeBron just had like 2 40-point games back to back.
I know.
Like, you know, and we're not even talking about LeBron. No. LeBron, we're not even talking about him because they're not even a good team. Like it's a tough year to be in the MVP conversation because everybody is playing at such a high level, and like there are so many guys that have been there in that conversation for a while and that are playing close enough basketball to get there that I don't think Donovan's going to get there in his first year of being in this conversation. But what we have seen is a leap. Like this is the leap that Steph Curry took before he became, you know, when he was Steph Curry, really good shooter. You know what I mean? Like 17 point per game. Hey, he's solid. Him and Klay Thompson, and then he became Steph Curry, one of the greatest players of all time, like 10 years later. So this is what Donovan is doing. He's on path to do is like, you know, I got to changed my lens on how I look at him is Donovan Mitchell, star on an NBA team, really good player for the Jazz and the Cavaliers too. Donovan Mitchell might be one of the better players in his generation,
right?
If he continues to play like this, because this isn't really good, which he's been his whole career. This is elite that he's been doing.
Yeah. Well, and I think the other point is like you're right about you need to like make your team better, and I feel like he has definitely proven that he has done that. Like a lot of times, like you said, if someone like Kobe was on a really bad team that year and he put up those stats, it's not looked at for the MVP conversation, I feel like, in the same way, because you didn't collectively like elevate your team throughout the course of an entire season. But even on that list of guys I listed off, like I feel like a lot of them also do that, like they are the reason that their team is at the level they are. A lot of them are, top 4-ish seeds in their respective conferences. So it is tough because it is kind of like everyone is doing the same thing on their own team.
Yeah, and it's tough too because like the East is such a slaughterhouse that like you can't even get to the 1 seed with 25 wins this early in the season. Like the Cavs are on pace to win like 54 games or something crazy like that, which is like the equivalent to like a 12-4 season in football for those of us who are trying to convert our brains over to basketball. Like that's what that's equivalent to. Cavs at the 4 seed right now. Like they might have to duke it out with the Sixers, who at the 5 seed, who, oh, by the way, the Cavs won like 3 games in a row. And we're still only 1 game above the Sixers. And we're like 1.5 away from if the Cavs were in the West right now, they'd be the 1 seed. Like they're the 4 seed in the East. So like this isn't the old days where like the East was like easy. It was a cakewalk. And like you can get 55 wins and get the 2 seed in the East. You might have to get 60. Like it might just take 60 to get the 1 seed in the East. And the team that gets 57 might be the 3 seed. Like you're not even guaranteed to be the 2 seed if you get 55 wins. You might actually fall to the 5. Like it is that stacked this year. And we're still waiting on Miami to see if they have any pulse left. And it seems like they do. They just have injuries. So it is a crazy season of basketball. Almost unfortunate the Cavs like are in the East, but but it is wild how we keep having to have this open seeding conversation because one conference is much stronger than the other, and the only conference in which we do this is the only one in major sports where they decided to do it between geographic locations rather than just like a made up fictional like American national thing. So it's funny that we keep falling into this and it just keeps changing. Oh, the East is better now, the West is better. It's never like, hey, both conferences are really good. It's like it's always like one conference has like 10 playoff teams and the other one has like 2.
Yeah. Well, and the East has all the like young talent, like the young up and coming talent. Whereas I feel like the West kind of has like a lot of the older guys. Like it's got LeBron, it's got, the Steph Draymonds, the Warriors dynasty over there. So it's like, I don't know, it's like the new era of players for the most part. Obviously, there's a couple still over in the West, but for the most part, it feels like they're all kind of dominating in the East together, which sucks for us, like you said, because every day it's like, okay, we won a game. Are we going to move up? Nope, because everyone above us also won. It's just a brutal back and forth. But I mean, I still am trying to keep in mind that there's so much season left. Like, I mean, the Nets, of course, have been on fire, but they're also like a team where you always think if an injury happens, like that changes their trajectory, and they have some injury prone players on that team. So there's so much that can happen.
Too, who's Kyrie prone.
Kyrie,
like he's probably going to miss some games at some point.
There's always that variable there for them. So, and just even any other team that doesn't have, the same injury prone situation, it could, things can change. So it's going to be interesting to watch as it unfolds over the next few months.
Speaking of the West, one of the teams that are supposed to be one of the better teams in the West, the Suns, came to Cleveland, and they played a football game at first at Rocket Mortgage. A very slow scoring. I don't think the Cavs got a 3 until almost into the halfway into the second quarter or something crazy like that. I thought you had jinxed them on Twitter. Like I was like, oh yeah, well, thanks.
Did you see? I think it was DraftKings had the easy bet for everyone in Ohio where they're like, if the Cavs score 1 3-pointer, like you double your money basically. So everyone of course puts their money into that because they're like, of course, every team is going to score a 3-pointer in the game. And then everyone's nervously sitting there, like almost at halftime, like, oh my God, wait, what if this is the one game where that doesn't happen? I'm like, Vegas has beat everyone at this point. If they could somehow figure out that was going to happen, it was kind of embarrassing.
Well, it was funny too because like I saw the tweet and I was like, eh. But then like Karras missed a couple threes and I was like, okay, well Karras misses threes sometimes.
Right.
And then like Kevin missed threes and it's like sometimes Kevin doesn't make a lot of threes. And then Donovan Mitchell got a screen and missed a wide open screen,
Yes.
like three that he always like. I don't even watch it go in because I'm like, yeah, it's probably three before it leaves his hand. And he bricked that and I was like, what's going on?
What's
like that was
here?
that was the one where I was like, nah, Donovan doesn't miss that shot.
Are we doing this on purpose?
You know what I mean?
It felt like it was on purpose after a while. You're like, I feel like, did you guys see the boost in the bet? And you just were like, let's mess with everyone. Because it was literally, we had 33 points in the first half. Like that's a football score, like you said. Like that's pretty crazy to only have that in the game in one half. It was hard to watch. I was like, do I even want to watch this right now?
Yeah, and one of the things I think has been kind of underspoken about the 71-point game and about the effort last night is both come from behind attempts, right? I think they were down 20 in that Bulls game, which makes that even more incredible that like he wasn't like that's what it doesn't make the 71 points even more incredible, but I think it makes how he got the 71 incredible because again, it wasn't like he said, hey, we're down 20. I'm going to just jack up some threes. It was like, no, I'm about to go to the cup down 20. And it hurts. Like, I don't think people understand. Basketball at that level, at that speed, hurts. And like he keeps hitting the floor like that. The floor is not soft. It hurts to hit that ground at that speed. And he was like, I'm down 20. We're going to get this. And I think the grit and grind of this team, like, this isn't the first time they've come back from 20. Like, it really isn't.
Well,
like, they've done this a bunch.
The Bulls were also, like, fighting still, too. It's not like they were just, like, sucking them. Like, they would keep hitting shots and keep chipping back. And it was going to be this back and forth. It wasn't like they laid down and were like,
it's not like they were, like, giving us victory. No, it was Donovan had to grab victory from the chest of the Chicago Bulls. And then they got to overtime and ain't had nothing left. Like, Donovan hit that three and then came back and hit another three. And I think you can see it in DeMar DeRozan's face. We ain't got nothing for that. Like, I don't think they scored a single point. And I think they might have scored like 2 points in that overtime. But that was, you can see very clearly, like, I think Vuk and Derek Jones were guarding him at one point. He makes a three and they were like, all right, man. Like, all right, like he's got 60. He's got 68, dog. Like, I guess he has it. Like, I guess the universe doesn't want us to win this game. But Evan Mobley, I think he got a big one. Had a bad game. Like, wasn't really shooting well from the field. I think it was like 1 of 8 or something like that from the field. Gets that final opportunity. Donovan trusts him enough to take that shot there to kind of run a play. It looks like that was at least an option. I don't think it was the main play. I think the main play was Donovan get to the cup. But he gets the ball to Evan Mobley right behind. Evan Mobley makes a jumper. I think that's big for Evan, right? Because one, he had to tell himself to calm down, which is hilarious because like, you could barely tell he hit that shot. Like, he didn't even have a reaction. He was like, but in his mind, he went, yeah. And then, like, I guess he was like, oh, whoa. But there's still 2.5 seconds left. So I thought that was hilarious that Evan felt like he needed to calm down in that moment. But beating a team that has that championship culture that we talk about, right? We talk about Chris Paul is one of those culture guys. And you win games like this because you got Chris Paul on the team. And look, they didn't have Devin Booker. We didn't have Darius Garland. So like, I think that kind of evens itself out. And in a game where your grit grind and your, this is cliche to get thrown around, your ability to win is going to get you this game. You did that over a team that is supposed to be one of those teams, right? Like, that's why we talk about the Suns, is they're the new Spurs. They can do all this stuff. You out-cultured the Suns, and I think that's a big one, right? Evan coming in, making that shot. What was your takeaways of that Suns game?
Yeah, well, like we already talked about, it was just like a tough game to watch in general because it didn't feel like we had it. But as you said, like, getting the wins when you don't have it is what good teams do. That's what winning cultures do, is when they're not having their best night, things aren't working. Maybe you're tired from the overtime game you just played 2 nights ago. and you still find a way to do it. You have your second year player, Evan Mobley, hit a game winner at the end, which I think, like you said, was really big for him. I think big mentally to see that he could do something like that. And for everyone to be able to see that he could do something like that, I think that was huge. So even though it was ugly at times, like those are the games that you look back at and you're like, yeah, this is what winning teams do. Like, of course, people can have their nights where everyone's hitting every shot and you're just going off. Any team can have a night like that. But to be able to get the wins when things aren't going your way is what matters most and helps you accumulate those wins that get us to 50 plus in the long run.
Yep. Now, one of actually, he's Lil Dog on a roster. Raul Neto, who, another guy like Lamar Stevens, who sometimes he doesn't play, sometimes he plays a lot if there's injuries, came in and like balled. Like the reason the Cavs were in the game was like Raul Neto had like a series in that quarter where he made a three, came back, made a layup, stole an inbounds pass, made another layup, and it got a rebound and one foul or something like he was ridiculous in that third quarter in this game. It's nice for Neto because we know Ricky Rubio's soon coming back. We don't know what the future is with Neto on this team. Like, best case scenario, he's probably getting a ton of DMPs. I felt like it was really nice for a dude who's worked his ass off this year to get that moment. How did it feel for you watching Neto be able to, have that moment this year?
Yeah, well, first of all, he was shooting like by the end of the game, I think it was 71% from the field, because I think that little stretch where he just was like boom, 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 boom. It was like incredible efficiency to be able to do that. Ended up with 14 points. But what I really think was crucial about what he did there was I feel like it was the energy boost that the team needed. Like I think that was the turning point, that chain of events that you just listed out there, where it was like, oh, okay, maybe we can get our mojo back and get things going. And I feel like it kind of gave everyone else the reason to push through there, and just happy for a guy like him, like you said, that doesn't get a ton of time, and the credit and notoriety because he's just not playing that much. To have him have his moment, get the junkyard dog chain at the end, it feels good when you see the different guys celebrated like that.
And an important thing was they did that run while I think early in the fourth quarter too, when Donovan was getting his rest, right? He had played 50 minutes the night before, and that allowed Donovan to only play 30 minutes in this game, and have a pretty light night considering that he just came off of a pretty taxing 71-point game where he played like the last 20 minutes like nonstop. So it was good for them to get that comeback in and not have it be like, hey, Donovan, we got to do it again, buddy. You know what I mean? Like, because I don't know if it happens if you have to do that like 2 nights in a row that he just had that effort to steal that game from the Bulls. And then Neto plays really well. Karras in that stretch plays well. He's been having a bit of a resurgence. He's kind of pointed this out. Even this is hilarious because now he's back in the starting lineup because Darius is out. But he said like he's felt better recently because he's back to being in his normal role, which is a bench scorer, right? I think, we talked about this a lot. Ricky coming back is going to do a lot for Karras as well. What do you make of this Karras LeVert resurgence? Is it something to get excited about? Or is it like with everything with Karras, it's like, hey, this is nice when he gives us it. You know what I mean? We can't rely on it every night, though.
Yeah, no, that's funny because I was thinking about how everyone kind of looks at him as a potential trade piece if we do want to, go out and get someone else at some point this season. And then he does these little things where you're like, well, I don't know, maybe we do want to keep him. Like he has these nice stretches where the last 4 games he's had 19, 23, 10, and 21. So some really good scoring nights. Against the Suns, he was shooting, I think, 71% from 3 and then 64% from the field. So also like incredible efficiency, and was, other than like Donovan and Neto, like those were the only other guys I feel like that had the juice. So he does have the ability to still have those nights where no one else really has it. And you're like, oh, okay, Karras LeVert, he's got it tonight. He's able to make those shots when you need him. So I don't know. I'm like trying not to get too hyped up on it because I think he's pretty streaky in general, but it has been nice to see. You
know what Karras LeVert and then Cedi Osman are? They're the basketball equivalent to like a long reliever in baseball. You know what I mean? Like they are the guys that, hey, you might get 4 excellent innings out of them. They might give up 7 runs. Like, you know what I mean? Right. Like with Jetty, it's like, hey, either he's going to be crazy good. Like either it's like, cause like you usually, they only get minutes when somebody's not having a great night or somebody's hurt, right? Yeah. Like Darius is having an off night. Okay. You bring in Karras to see if he can get it going. You know, you tap the middle reliever and hey, some days he gets you that 20 that you need. And some days he's just as bad as the starter. You know what I mean? But like, that's what I feel like their role is for this team. It's kind of an odd role, but like, if you look at their minutes, it makes sense. Because their games are like, Jetty just doesn't play. Like, their games, he gets like 25. And then like, sometimes he doesn't play after getting to 25. And that's what I see them as, is like, JB treats them like middle relief, where it's like, hey, if one of my horses isn't going, get the righty out the bullpen. That's Karras. Get the lefty, and that's Jetty. And this role like that, and I think that's how he likes to use them. It's weird that we have 2 guys who both do that, but I think there is some kind of utility there for him. Does it outweigh having an experienced wing? It depends on which one you can get. You know. I have my PJ Tucker theory out there.
Yes.
But, there are other ways that you can go about it. So it's like, that's something you have to weigh. If you do have to get rid of Karras, you do know that you at least have Jetty, who can, pop up in there and give you some good points, especially with like a more consistent point guard out there. It's going to be interesting to see what they do with them. I think, though, underrated element of Karras and Jetty, well, especially Jetty has some of the funnest, like, I'm going to the hole takes that you ever see, because, like, Jetty on the fast break, he's not looking for it.
Yes. I hate Jetty on a fast break. There's nothing worse than watching Jetty on a fast break.
3 people could crash at Jetty, and he's like, he's not looking up, dog. Like, he's not passing out.
Stop.
He's not. Like, Kevin Love, every time he throws that full court pass to Jetty, he knows either he's going to make an incredible and one, or he's going to go to the foul line, or he's going to blow this layup. There is no pass out option with Jetty.
No, I don't think he's trying to make it when he does that. He just throws it up. Like, he's not even attempting to. He's just like flailing his body, like seeing maybe if it'll go in.
Yeah, he's getting the points. Like, you know what I mean? Karras will get in trouble because he tries to pass out too much. They're kind of like the opposite, but the same in that. Yeah. Because when Karras he tries to pass out or do too much under the basket, and he gets a turnover or something, gets a ball knocked out of bounds. Whereas Jetty, one thing I do appreciate, you ain't got to guess. You know what I mean? There is no guessing. Right. Like, if you're Evan Mobley following Jetty on that rebound, on that fast break, just set up for the rebound. You know what I mean? Yeah. Set up for the putback, because that is the only oop that you're going to get in this possession. Because Jetty, when he goes downhill, ain't no stopping him from himself.
Well, the other thing with Karras and Jetty that I was thinking about that are interesting and could be beneficial for a team like the Cavs, when you get into like playoffs and stuff, a lot of times in the matchups, like they're trying to take down Donovan, they're trying to take down Darius and Jarrett and Evan and your star players. And you need those bench guys to just be able to step up in interesting moments. It's like the Sean Livingston of the Warriors, when like in 2016, he would, like, I think it was the first 2 games, maybe, he just like went off. They just had a lot of role players who were going so hard because like Steph wasn't really shooting well. We were kind of shutting them down. So it's like you need guys like that who can take over or potentially have the ability to take over when your stars are getting kind of shut down.
Yeah, and it's like every playoff series has the random role player 20-point game at home. That's awesome. Like, even in the bubble, I remember like Tim Hardaway Jr. had like a random home role player 20-point game. And it is all like when Bobby Portis like gets a random 20-point game or 30-point game in like game 4 of the at the Eastern Conference Finals. It is one of, like, every playoff run has that. And I feel like Jetty and Karis LeVert, like, if we play the Celtics, Karras will have a random 35-point game. He will absolutely have one on the road, and we'll be like, oh, my God, Karis LeVert just saved the Cavs in this game. Yeah. He will absolutely have one of those. Jetty's going to have his at home, but, like, he's definitely like, I'm going to have a 30-point game off the bench randomly. Like, that's what they are.
Nailing threes.
Yeah. You can't rely on them as why they're not in the starting lineup on a regular rotation. But if you use them like relief pitchers, it kind of makes sense, right? Because, look, they're not going to give you 10 minutes of production in 10 minutes, but they could give you it. It's just they get to their averages because of highs and lows. Like that's how they get there. And I think they're interesting players to watch and to look at. Now, one question before we get out of here. We've had a 71-point game. We've had multiple 40-plus point games. We've had multiple very memorable games, overtime games, like 6 or 7 of them. We've had crazy win streaks. It's only halfway through the season. But is there a regular season that you can find that's as memorable already as this Cavs season?
Yeah. Honestly, I feel like no. Like obviously if you include playoffs, like 2016 tops everything forever. But in terms of just regular season, like those years with LeBron and stuff, the regular seasons weren't that fun because it was just like we just need to get to the playoffs and go to the finals. Like you didn't even really consider the regular season because LeBron was kind of like, I know how to work the system so that we can be, one of the top couple seeds. But I'm going to take off in the playoffs and we're going to the finals. Like you weren't enjoying the ins and outs of every single day, which sometimes I regret because it's like we got to watch LeBron James on our team, but you were just like so focused on getting to the playoffs, getting to the finals that I do feel like I feel like fans in general are really, for the most part, other than the negative ones who like want to fire everyone and trade everyone, are really enjoying the moment, enjoying every single game. Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse is like losing their mind every night because it's been so much fun to watch at home that I do think, at least in my lifetime, like watching regular season basketball, I feel like this is the most fun I have had watching, at least up until this point in the season.
Yeah, the only one I can think of from like my memory of watching Cavs seasons is maybe 2015 because that was what Kyrie had like the 57, 58. They traded everybody LeBron in the middle of the season. Yeah. It was like crazy. It was like LeBron. What was that 2016 though? Am I mixing the years? Because I don't think LeBron had a headband, and he had a headband that first year back in Cleveland, right? Yeah, like
then he grew up.
That second year where because they fired David Blatt in the middle of the year, and they made the trade and everything. Okay, so it's that David second Blatt. Year. Yeah, that's a name blast from the past. He was supposed to lead a Kyrie and Gordon Hayward led Cavs team, which thankfully never ended up happening. But yeah, it was. Like they switched from like you saw him hit the switch, you saw him like get some pieces in order, and I think that might have been because they added J.R. Smith in the middle of the 2015 year, so it's like everything before 2016 kind of gets mashed up into that. But I think that one was pretty good, but even then it didn't have the intrigue because we were just get to the final. Like it was this anxiousness of like just get to the playoffs healthy. But this one is like
you had to get it off your back. Like we needed to get the championship thing off our back, But then I don't know. Now, of course, we want to win a championship. Like that's always the end goal. But we don't have this like lingering thing of like you guys are the city without a championship in the longest number of years. Like it was just kind of this thing eating away. Whereas now it's just like a little bit less pressure, I guess.
Yeah, and it just feels, I don't know, it's just like, and it's like this new thing where it's like, hey, we haven't really seen something like this, where it's like a well-run Cavaliers like team. Because like, I don't know if the Cavs I would call the Cavs well-run. I think they've been one of the better franchises that LeBron's been with outside of Miami. Obviously, the other one being the Lakers. Like, that's been a disaster for him. But like, it was LeBron running the organization for the most part, right? Like, he literally signed half of the like 2013 Miami Heat. We had Mike Miller on this team. That was go back and watch like early 2014 Cavs 2015 LeBron on the Cavs basketball. You're like, this is a weird team. Like Deion Waiters is on here, and then Mike Miller's getting minutes, and we're talking about, was Birdman on the team? I feel like Birdman was almost on the team at one point. They were trying to get Ray Allen. Like there was just a lot of weird stuff going on. Right. Like it felt like the Cavs had bought the Heat and merged. Like it was weird, but this is different where it's like it doesn't feel like we bought this in free agency.
Yes.
It feels like
we
grew this
was
organically.
Yeah.
And you watch, Darius Garland struggle for the first couple years and become an all-star.
Mm-hmm.
You're watching the evolution of Evan Mobley. And it's not like when LeBron came back, he was a certified, he was LeBron James when he came back. He had a football stadium come to his, like you were there when he did that.
Yes. I was.
Yeah. So with Donovan, it's like, he was really good in Utah. He's becoming a superstar in Cleveland.
Yeah.
Like, this is all happening. We're watching an evolution of this team in Cleveland. And I think that's why you want to watch sports teams, right? That's why it feels weird when a team trades for a superstar and it doesn't feel right to some fans, because you want to watch the guy that's the star of your team become that star. You want to see some growth in that way, because it's kind of weird.
Like LeBron. Yeah, like LeBron and Kyrie were so much fun because like we built Kyrie, like we drafted him and built him up. And of course, LeBron came back, but like he was our guy, like that was our guy that we got to win with. And I feel like also as a city, like we have seen more good basketball than most franchises have. So we knew what good basketball was like. And then LeBron left and Kyrie left, and we had bad basketball. So to have good basketball again, we know what it's like. And then we almost appreciate it more because we lost it for a while and it didn't exist. And then to have it again, I think the enjoyment is different because you lost it and you can appreciate it more because of it. Like we've seen like for most of our lifetimes, like, I don't know what other franchise I feel like Golden State has had more recently, obviously the good years, but overall collectively, like we're up there on the list of teams that have gotten to watch really good basketball.
Yeah, I don't think the same like pessimistic thoughts that I think during Browns games, during Cavs games.
No.
Like for me, it's like can the Cavs, are they going to crumble? I'm like, they usually don't. You know what I mean? No, when they're good, they're usually good. Like, I've never been like, like LeBron's never like come to like Cleveland and like lost in the first round or something like that. Like he's been able to do everything he's done throughout his career. But that's going to be it for the Cavs Attack this week. If you want to hear more from Ab, she has a wonderful podcast. You can catch it. It's Just a Girl from Cleveland. You can catch it on Spotify, Stitcher, anywhere where podcasts are played, Apple Music, all of that, it's there. I think she just did her 100th episode, and you just did your 101st episode.
Yeah, and I just started YouTube actually for it. I've never recorded them video-wise before, but for my last one, episode 101, I did a video for it. So still working out the kinks of how I want that to look, but gonna try to start doing video for that.
Okay, we got, after you get to 100, it's a new era.
New era.
New era there. So make sure you check her out everywhere you can. Abby_Mueller_ on Twitter. Make sure you follow her there for any updates and wherever she drops her content. She also does a SI drop for the Browns Digest. Check that out. And then her podcast also covers all things Cleveland, plus the Ohio State Buckeyes, which, sorry about that. That was. I
don't even want to go there. That
was. I made sure I didn't text my dad for 3 days after that because I was like, man, I'm just gonna talk about how great a game it was, and he's not gonna want to hear it. He's not gonna want to hear it. We were the best.
We played the best football that weekend out of any of those teams. So we at least have that. But
oh man, hey, don't trust the kickers. You know what I mean? That's what it comes down
I know.
to. But everybody else, y'all have a great day. Have an even better